Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Insurance Town. I'm the mayor, Heath Shearon, and the host of this podcast. Guys, I'm pumped. You're here. I've got a good friend of mine, like a brother to me, someone who I spent a lot of time with, and I can't wait for you to hear this conversation. He was like number one or two, five, six, seven, whatever. He was early on in the podcast back in 2020, and he was, doing some really cool stuff. And now, I want to catch up with him 4 or 5 years later because, a really cool story about buying three agencies in one day. You got to hear this story. So I'm not going to tell you too much and tease it too much more. I want to get into the conversation as soon as I can. But before I do, I want to talk to you about my sponsors and Smart Choice, Canopy Connect, and Old School Marketing. We're going to talk about Smart Choice in this episode towards the end. So I did want to make sure I did let you know to go to smartchoiceagents.com and check them out. 11 billion in premium, 10,000 agencies across the country. They have very incredible contracts that help you to grow your agency. Not only is it market access, but it's also relationships. It's also helping you grow your business. They also give you advice. They also give you hands-on help with commercial if you need it or personal lines. Smartchoiceagents.com. Also, guys, old school marketing takes a new school approach to an old school way of marketing with direct mail pieces, handwritten notes. They do a phenomenal job with that, and they keep the phone ringing all month long, all year long, however long you decide to do it. It's a drip style method with the direct mail pieces. They also do some digital marketing. They also do email marketing. I'm telling you, Rusty's a genius. His team is phenomenal. Oldschoolmarketing.com. Also, Canopy Connect, your one-click solution to getting the deck pages you need and also getting the loss runs you need and the driver listen you need. And they help you with so much in the onboarding process of your prospects and to help them smoothly transition into customers of your agency. And they help you with renewals. They help you with referrals. They help you with the whole 9 yards. Make sure you go to usecanopy.com/Heath and get your demo, and make sure you get your discount too for being a listener of Insurance Town. Guys, I got to slide out of the way because I want you to get to this conversation and hear this story of my good friend, Holden Smith. Holden Smith, what's going on, brother?
How are you, buddy?
Man, I am good. I'm really good. Got to spend some time on a golf course recently and getting to hang out with some friends, and life is good, ramping up for travel season. So, what about you, man? Life treating you all right?
I can't complain like you. Spent Wednesday on the golf course, getting ready Sunday afternoon to get on a plane, head to DC for Advocacy Week with TIA next week, and looking forward to it. It's a fun time of the year, right? It's all
Yeah, it is.
crazy to the end, but it's a fun time of the year.
It is that. It is that. And so, yeah, lots have changed since the last time you and I talked. You and I still talk on a regular, and you talk to someone in my family on a regular, and played golf with my daughter anyway.
Right,
So, but
right.
for the audience sake, lots have changed. I think you've added a kid since we last talked.
Yeah.
So that being said, from your mom's back deck, your mother-in-law's back deck to 2024, where we are now, almost to 2025. Catch us up a little bit. What's been going on? Last we talked, I think you had just went from a stable of producers to no producers. So now you've built it back up to a large, sizable,
Yeah.
agency. So talk to me a little bit. Catch me up.
Let's see. We've done three M&As. We've done we're at 15 employees right now, I think.
Crazy.
It's been
That's
wild.
wild.
It's been an insane 4 years. It really has.
So for the audience, though, so we'll just get too deep into fodder. Let's give them a little context of who Holden Smith is, where you came from. Give a little 2 or 3 minutes on that so they can know who you is.
Yeah. So I founded Lennox Insurance in February of 16. We were a scratch shop. Um, almost 8.5 years later now, we're sitting here, four locations, 15 employees, a bunch of fun numbers behind the scenes that nobody cares about. But I mean, it's been good. I think in that 4 years since we've talked, like I've been PIA president, and your wife's gotten to put up with me on a weekly basis. But no, managing partner at Lennox now, 8.5 years in, and I still enjoy it. Like there are days like the industry's not, it's not what it used to be.
What? Yeah, I was about to say that thinking through the last, let's say, 5 years of your agency, you've almost been through like 2 decades, worth of, experience in the insurance industry in that 4 or 5 years. You started off in one of the softest markets we've ever had. And now you're right in the, I still think in the middle of the hardest and longest hard cycle that we've ever been in. I don't think we're going anywhere anytime soon. We're going to be in the hard market for a little while longer. So that's got to be interesting for you. And again, I watched this meteoric rise of your agency with these two hotshot producers, yourself, and then they left. Not to anything wrong. They're still your best friends, but now you're rising again. So it's interesting to see what has that been for you, and do you attribute that to anything in particular?
Dude, like, a lot of times in life you get lucky. Like, and really, like, everything for me has always come back to, like, since the day I was born, I was surrounded by the right people.
Yeah.
Like I had, not everybody's blessed to get a mom and dad that love them, right? And
Right.
that pour into them and invest in them. And like, not everybody's blessed enough to come from a family that cares and is invested and interested. And then not everybody's lucky enough, blessed enough to have, friends and people that pour into them. And really, like, my dad used to use this phrase, and there were people that didn't care for it, but it was like, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And like for me, like I'm kind of like the living embodiment of that. Like I'm not
Yeah.
the brightest guy on the planet by any stretch of the,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I'm fortunate that like the right people have picked me to come through and have, this new look staff and all these locations and stuff like that. Now then on the other side of that, it's just super interesting and just really, really blessed, like with the people that surround me and everything like that, and always have been. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, like was fortunate to come out of the womb surrounded by the right folks, and it's never really let up.
Yeah. It's incredible. And so you brought up a good point about coming into the world with the right people. And I know, I went to the ribbon cutting of your new building, which you had a beautiful space. And you had a very heartwarming, touching talk. You dedicated the building to your mom and dad, and neither one of them are with us anymore. And so if you can, what is that? Because you still have this great positive attitude. You have, again, surrounded by the right people. But what was that like for you, losing both of those people that you loved dearly?
Yeah, so I mean, like, and you know this, but just so everybody listening kind of knows the context, like I lost my dad whenever I was 16, lost my mom in 2022. So, lost my dad at 16, lost my mom at 31. And like, don't get me wrong, like people have it way worse than I do. Like, losing your parents young is tough, but like, I did get to grow up with my dad. Like,
Yeah.
I do know who he is and what he was like and stuff like that, and there's some of that, there's some of those pearls of wisdom. Like I didn't get a ton of them, but like I got some of them.
Yeah.
And that was tough, but I think watching the way my mom handled that prepared me, 15, 16 years later to lose her because, my dad died on a Monday night. And I remember I missed school that week. Um, we had his visitation, we had his funeral. You do all those things, right? And I remember Sunday afternoon rolls around. It was like, hey, you're going to school tomorrow. Like that was that. Like you're going to school tomorrow. Like we
Yeah.
we have to keep going. Like it's not optional. Like I'm not telling you you're better. I'm not telling you you're over it. Like I'm not telling you you're ever going to be over it. I'm telling you like tomorrow you go back to life and we're going to figure out what this looks like. Um, and that was kind of the same approach I took, you know, fast forward 15 years later of, I mean, she didn't let me sit around and mope whenever I was a kid. So I would assume she didn't intend for me to do that as an adult. But it's weird, right? Like, I mean, because you do need that figure somewhere that's like, hey man, maybe that didn't come across the way you intended for it to. And it's a lot more palatable whenever it's mom and dad, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you prefer that it's your mom that pulls you to the side and it's like, hey, I still love you, but you sound like an idiot right now. Oh,
Yeah.
my bad. It's not what I meant to have happen, but my bad.
Yeah.
Um, so it's strange. Like, there's always this little bit of like a chip on your shoulder, like this chasing a ghost or something like that, because like you want them to be proud of you.
Yeah.
And like they can't say it and you can't hear it. And that like it's weird, like that validation's not coming, right? Like you can
Sure.
chase it all you want to, but at some point you have to look inside and search for it in there because it's not like it's not coming from that external source anymore. And that's strange. Like it's different. Like because you think you're prepared. Like if you're somebody who's lost one parent, you're like, okay, like I understand what this is like. And it's like, yeah, you do, but being a true blue, like it sounds weird, being an orphan is different. Like losing
I didn't
one
think
and
about it
losing
like that.
both
Yeah.
is very different.
Yeah.
Because you lose one, and it's like you still have the other, and that one kind of blends parenting styles at that point of like, hey, like this is what I think your dad would tell you if he was here. Okay, cool. This is what I'm telling you. This is what I think your dad would tell you. And now you're in this situation where it's like, I go home and me and Jordan talk it out, and I mean, there's not any of that call mom, like, hey mom,
Yeah.
I'm fine. That's not there.
Yeah.
And that's a different feeling. But I mean, just
Do you take some of those things with you in managing people and raising your own kids? And does that play out in your personal life now and like in your business life and all of that together?
yeah. I mean, I think very much so. It's like you look at it and you appreciate people. Because like I am smart enough to know like all of this can end like just like that, like it's over. I mean, me and you don't get to go to DC together for forever.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
that's not how this works. Holden and Blake and Jace don't get to work together for forever. That's
Right.
not how this operates. Like this staff that I've got right now that are great people and they're a great team and like I love having all of them. It's not going to be like this forever. And with the kids, like you look at it and you go, hey man, they're not 6 months old for forever. Um,
100%.
they're, I mean, I read something the other day and it was like, oh yeah, like you should know that. But it's like one of these days you're going to be riding down the road and go, hey, look, buddy, tractor. And there's going to be a 12-year-old in the back seat that goes, so?
Right.
It's like right
100%.
now, like
Yeah.
you're driving down the road and you're like, hey, buddy, look, tractor. Or it's like, hey, daddy, cow. And it's like, and they're like, hey, this goes by quick. Because one of these days you're going to drive down the road and look at somebody in the back seat and go, hey, buddy, look, a cow. And they're going to go, yeah, like I can see
Yeah.
you. Like,
Yep.
what boy.
Exactly. Oh
So, I
yeah.
mean, just like I think I'm very good at like not taking my people for granted. And there are times you look back over, times with mom and dad where you're like, I wish I had that back. Like, I wish I could do that again. But you can't.
Yeah.
Like you can't, and so you try to make sure moving forward that you don't feel that way again.
Sure.
Um, but no, I mean it's definitely interesting. Like it's definitely interesting how even once they're gone, they shape your perspective on how the world works.
Yeah. And going through something like that, I wouldn't say makes it easier, but a different perspective when you hit something like a pandemic or a hard market, or you lose two of your top producers and you have to rebuild, or you're taken down to the studs almost. You have to rebuild the whole organization, and then again, hard market hits. Now you're growing again through acquisitions and you're training new staff. There's a lot going on. It's just interesting perspective for you, I would imagine, going through that. Now you have that experience in your back pocket. And we tease you a lot behind your back, and you probably heard it in your face of, he's 33 going on 80, and like this old man. and you're still a young guy in your career and young in the industry, and especially in our industry, and yet you've had so much life experience. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
Here I am twice, 10 years older than you, and I feel like you've got twice the experience.
yeah. Not all that's good, right? Like, there are parts of that where you're like, hey, man, I wish I could have gotten to do that whenever I was older. But I think the
Yeah.
other side of that too, though, is like I'm very willing to listen.
Yeah.
I'm very willing to hear what people have to say. Like, I'm open to being coached. One of my best friends is a guy by the name of Cameron Brown that runs Insurance Brokers of Arizona. And one of the things he says is like, I love talking to you because you actually listen to me. And it's like, man, like, why would you, one of our mutual friends, Elliot Carr always said, like, I'm willing to give everybody who'll listen the blueprint because none of them are going to go do it.
Exactly.
And it's like, and I don't get that. Like, I don't get why whenever people are willing to pour in that, you're not willing to listen. Doesn't mean I'm going to do everything Cameron's way. Doesn't mean that, Elliot's way is the only way that works. Doesn't mean that Heath's way is the only way that works. Doesn't mean that my way is the only way that works. But it does at least get the perspective. Like, at least
Yeah.
listen. And every good idea I've ever had, I think I stole from somebody else. Like, so, or borrowed, however you want to put it.
Right.
I mean, it's just so interesting that there are folks that will choose not to listen and not to take advantage
Yeah.
of other people's knowledge whenever they're willing to share.
Yeah. You had mentioned, earlier on, 3 acquisitions last year, and you've got multiple locations. Is that something when you first started the agency, like you wanted to grow? I know you started off organic growth out the roof. Where
Uh,
did that all of a sudden, like, I'm gonna buy an agency? Like, where did that come from? Was that of a need or necessity, or you just wanted to, or just bored?
like everything else we've ever talked about, it just kind of happened. Like, wasn't looking for it, wasn't against it. But all 3 opportunities popped up in like a 7-day window. Um,
Wow.
right? Like, we closed on all 3 of them the same day. Like, FYI, 10 out of 10 would not recommend, wouldn't do that again.
Goodness
Yeah, no,
gracious.
like that, like I've had some like people
So you
listen.
literally overnight went from one location to however many now.
Yeah, and like it's easy to listen to this stuff and go, oh, like this went great and that went awesome, and like buying 3 insurance agencies in the same day is a stupid idea. Like I will gladly tell anyone who will listen, 3 in a day is not the number.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Because you've got 3 cultures, 3 ways of doing
Yeah.
things. Like 3 different client bases that are used to being treated in certain ways, and now you're trying to like, exercise your will into the situation, and but this is how we do it. And shoot, I showed up to one of our locations the first day that takes cash payments without a change drawer because we don't take cash payments, and I didn't think to bring a change drawer. So, like if your folks who are listening to this look at it and go, everybody who's on this podcast talks about how everything went great and their career went awesome and they've never made like 3 in a day is a mistake. Like, there you go. If you want to talk about bad ideas, there's one. 3 in a day is a bad idea. But you learn, right? Like, and it goes back to your point earlier about perspective. Nobody died.
Right.
No, like one of the things like that I've heard Gary Vaynerchuk say is like, hey, if you're in business and like you're having a bad day, like picture that your phone just rang and the person you love the most in the world is gone. Now then, how bad is what you're going through right now? It's like, we'll get through it. We'll manage.
Right. 100%.
Like I bought 3 agencies in a day, and the only way through it's through it. So let's get through it, because there's got to be, at some point there's got to be light at the end of the tunnel, and you just keep digging.
Right. A good perspective to have. Now, I've got a weird transition here, but I've got a couple of tattoos. The people that say they get tattoos, it's like, an addiction. You want to get like 30 after that, and you sleeve out, and next thing you know, you're, tatted down, you've got face tats and the whole thing. But with M&A, buying 3 in one day, I know you said that was a mistake, but has that become like an itch you want to scratch now? It's like, maybe this is something I should continue to
Yeah.
focus on.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like all of it. Like, I mean, you were a producer at one point, and once you start, once you sell something, like sales is one of those things. Like, either the bug bites you or it doesn't.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah.
and if it bites you, you're going to be a salesman for forever. It just
Hmm.
depends on what you're selling. Like, it
Yep.
may be cars, it may be insurance, it may be yourself as a brand, whatever it is. Like,
Yeah.
you're going to sell something. And I think the M&A bug's kind of the same way. Like once it bites you, like you either fall in love with it or you go, "Ooh, that wasn't all that." Like, I think you learn a lot. Like that, and that's the thing is like some of this stuff. Like the only way to learn how to do it is to do it.
Yeah.
The thing on M&A is like people can prepare you for it all they want to. Like I had some great guys that were willing to take every phone call I had about M&A and what this was going to be like and what it was going to look like and what day one was. But until you
Yeah.
do it, like until you're in it, like all of that's like, oh yeah, it's like raising kids, right? Like
Yep.
day you see that kid, like you're going to understand what love is. And it's like, I'm pretty sure I do. And then like you see the kid and you're like, oh, like this is it. Like that's what they meant. Like,
Yep.
um,
100%. Well,
yeah,
then let me ask you this. How do you balance that, or do you in your agency and those that are listening, that balance of organic growth? And then I'm going to end up purchasing 5 agencies in the next 5 years.
keep them separate. Organic never stops. Like,
Okay.
you
Well, that's not the true statement in every agency. Some agencies don't do that. So anyway, I'm glad to hear you say that. Keep
I mean,
going.
my thought process is they're two separate things, right? Like we are going to grow organically because we have to. Like that's the game. Because if you're not growing the core business organically, you can't grow what you buy. Like, and it's
That's
like you
great.
have to have a system and a process and stuff like that that you can take into these locations and replicate. To me, the way I view it is, you know, organic growth within what we have right now is the ice cream sundae. M&A is the cherry on top. M&A is the hot. If you like hot fudge, M&A is the hot fudge. If you like strawberry, M&A is the strawberry. Whatever it is, but M&A is something we do in addition to growing the core business because once we buy that, that becomes part of the core business, and we want it to grow too.
So you're not taking the foot off the gas. It's 2 different cars. You're not taking the foot off the gas of organic,
Right.
which I guess it's noticing my hand motions. I got the hand raised up there. But anyhow, so how do you lower that? Anyhow, so I guess I talked too much of my hand on that one. So yeah, I just think that's interesting perspective because I see you and I both know agency owners that have gone out there and that's their game. They're just going to buy agencies and just hang on to it, just hold on tight, lock the back door, and not even worry about anything else. And I think that works until it doesn't. And so I think it's smart to keep that foot on the gas with organic and M&A as a cherry on top.
The thing about it is like if all you're doing is M&A, then you're assuming that every M&A goes well,
Right.
and they don't. Like they can't. Like not everything you buy turns to gold. Just like not every piece of like we've both written pieces of organic business that you get 3 months into it and go, why in the world
Yeah.
do you work with these people?
How quickly can I cancel this policy?
Like we're gonna go find another agent. And it's like, man, I hope you do.
Yeah.
I hope you
I
mean
can
it.
introduce
But
you to somebody.
yeah, like please tell me you're not kidding. Like
Yeah.
I know a couple of people, would you like to meet them? Like I'll pay for the lunch.
Yeah.
And the same thing happens with mergers. Is like you get into stuff and you're like, oh, like this is very different from my core business. And the thing about it is if you're in love with mergers and acquisitions and it's all you do, it gets really hard to walk away from a deal, right?
Yeah.
It gets really hard to walk away whenever that's your growth pattern. Because it's like, hey, if we don't make these deals, we're not growing. And I don't want to be in that situation to where I'm hamstrung and having to buy stuff that I don't want to work on or that don't fit what I do or anything like that, because the
Yeah,
only way I know how to grow is to buy a book.
100%. So my question to you, okay, so three different agencies. Like for context, those are listening, the agency that we knew that we interviewed in 2020 and when you came on the first time was strong personal lines, barely any commercial. So do you buy agencies, these three agencies and beyond? Do you buy agencies to strengthen the personal lines you got or to diversify into commercial or maybe life or maybe something else? Or is it a combination or just, again, just opportunities present itself so you bought what you could?
So a little bit of the latter, a little bit of this is what presented itself. I
Yeah.
want to learn how this works. The only way I know how to learn how it works is to do it. So I
Yep.
did. Um, from it, I did develop a commercial lines division. It did bring enough to the table to fund a commercial lines division that we didn't have before.
Yeah.
And that's been fantastic for us this year. Like I would say that's the highlight of the purchases is the fact that, if you hit me with a piece of commercial business at this point, like we're not lost. Like like
Yeah.
like we know what we're doing. And that's huge. Like,
Yeah, it is.
like the experience is something that you have or you don't, and fortunately for us now, because of the people we've been able to go get, we have it.
Yeah.
So we're looking to round that book out closer to a 50-50 book,
That's awesome.
as opposed to, I mean, at one point in time we were dang near 100% personal lines.
Yeah. And doing really well at it. You knew the lane you were in and you stayed in that lane. And we talked about that throughout the years of like, I know my lane. I tried to call on you with EMC or I tried to call on you to other companies. And I was like, you got to get a commercial. Like, nope, I know my lane. But now,
Yeah.
As you grow, you gotta change a little bit. You got to
Yeah.
adapt.
It's funny that you mentioned EMC because one of the ladies that works for us, who's on our commercial lines division, spotted Eddie Wednesday at the golf tournament. Was like, "Hey, I need to talk to you."
Right.
And it's funny. It's like, "Oh yeah, like I'm the idiot that's the reason you don't have that right now. My bad. I think I
Yeah.
probably should have taken that in 2016, whatever it was offered to me. My bad."
Right.
But
But, again,
at the time, like
lessons learned.
we wouldn't know what to do with it. Um,
Right.
so
So moving forward, I guess you just look at the opportunities to, as those are listening, like what do I look for first when I'm looking to buy an agency? So moving forward, not everybody's going to get three agencies dropped in their lap. So as you strategize growth through M&A, would you tell someone to look to strengthen a current book, or would you tell someone to diversify, or to get staff or markets? What do you?
So I think it depends on what you need. Like, like, like,
Good
like, like,
question. Good
where,
answer.
where are you? Who are you?
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at me, like if you were heavy personal lines about 12 to 18 months ago, your life got really difficult.
Yeah.
Because homeowners has almost become like this dirty word in the insurance industry, where it's, I mean, and used to
Yeah.
like, it's like, hey, we'll take all the homes we can get. They're profitable. Everybody loves them. Blah 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 blah. Like
Yeah.
every carrier in the world was like, write all the homes you want. And then somewhere in that last 4 to 5 year window, like homeowners became like this thing that people are running from. And it's
Yeah.
like we gotta so if you're that and you're looking at like, hey, we've got to pivot and be something else, and the quickest way to pivot is to buy a commercial book, then go that route. I think it's all about like what you're trying to accomplish, where you're at currently, and where you're trying to go.
Yeah.
And really, it's about making sure a deal fits you, and making sure the culture fits you, and making sure that the way you do things translates to this agency and this company, and that you're not going to be the thing that doesn't fit, because that doesn't work. Like I'm not going anywhere. So if I don't fit here, like we have a problem.
Yeah. What I loved was, and I had opportunity recently to spend time with your entire team and from all walks of life and all different state or not states, but cities within our state. And they got along so well. And you can't, I don't know. I don't think you can manufacture that. I don't think it's, I hate the word culture. I think I like chemistry better. They
Right.
just had a chemistry with one another, and it was just interesting to see because opposite ends of the state, opposite ends of the world. As far as that goes, and it's like, wow, that was just something like, again, knowing you can't manufacture that. Is that something you try to have some sort of intention on? You just kind of stay out of the way and let it happen.
So the big thing that you try to get right is hiring.
Yeah.
Because like, you hire character and the rest of it kind of works itself out.
Yep.
Um, don't hire somebody you don't want to be around. Like, don't hire somebody you wouldn't go to lunch with. Don't put up with people within the organization that don't want to be a part of the organization. And like the thing is like people hear that and they're like, well, Bob, and it's like you're not saying they're bad people. You're saying they don't fit here.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't mean you're a bad person. It doesn't mean we don't like you. It doesn't mean anything like that. It just means like you've got to fit here. Like you
Well,
have to
and
fit here.
well, the flip side of that, and I've been interviewing several people lately for some positions here on my team at Vertiflor, and it's funny how the focus switched so quickly from like, what are your goals and what interests you about the job to more like chemistry questions and how you fit in here. But on the flip side of that, I was able to talk to a couple of candidates recently that I was like, here's the thing, you wouldn't enjoy working here. Like it's got to go there. Like they might be a fit for you, but you may not be a fit for them either. It'd be like Linux is not the place for you. Like here's how we operate. You're over in this. Like we're not gonna be a good fit. You'll be miserable here. It's not just about fitting at your agency. And I was able to tell some people like, you wouldn't like it here at Vertiflor. Like we're very corporate. We're very this, we're very that. Things move a little slower than you used to at startup. I think you'd be better off. It's just, you have to look at it from both sides of that coin.
Like I mean, everybody's got stuff that they enjoy. And if what we do isn't something you enjoy, and if the office culture we've got, isn't a culture that you want to be a part of, or isn't the type of culture that you're interested in, or whatever, then it's not gonna work. Like
Right.
and like
100%.
hiring's hard enough. Like you don't want to set it up to be a stopover like from Jump Street. So it's surround yourself with good people and then trust them to do what they do. Like trust them to do what you hired them
Yeah.
to do. And then, if there's a problem, step in and help work on it and fix it, but try and stay out of their way.
Yeah. The other thing I'd be interested, from your perspective, again, growing so quickly in M&A, like the clients that you purchased, the policies, the clients, the people, how in the world, how do you maneuver through some of that? How do you manage it? What's been your strategy on that to make sure you don't lose some of those clients? And maybe you planned on losing a few by attrition. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean we underwrote the deals to lose a certain percentage.
Yeah, sure.
We missed that by a little bit. Like full disclosure, we missed it by a little bit. Um, because like you don't know 100% what you're getting into. Like you
Yeah.
don't know what the client's relationship with the agency was. Like, because you buy an agency and, maybe Heath's cousin who doesn't share Heath's last name was also Heath's largest policyholder.
Right.
And the only reason he was here was Heath.
Yep.
And what Heath may not have known is the guy that he plays golf with every Tuesday is also an insurance broker that's been waiting for the day that Heath bows out of the
Bingo.
equation.
Yep.
Nothing I'm going to do to solve that. Like
Yeah.
they've literally been waiting for your name not to be attached to it. They're not
Yeah.
taking it out of your Christmas budget and they're out the door.
Yeah.
So I mean, to me, you've gotta book in some attrition for it. Like you're not gonna keep everybody happy. Sometimes you buy them and carriers pull out of the state, and
Yeah.
sometimes you buy them and carriers, go insolvent. And like you can't plan for everything. You do the best you can. Um, don't buy a book if you're married to a policy. Like if you're looking at a book of business and it's, say an $800,000 book of business and you've
Yeah.
got one account in there that's 200 grand, like you might want to underwrite that as a $600,000 book of business
Yeah.
because keeping that one big whale is like that's a bonus. Like you
Yeah.
can't guarantee that guy or gal staying with you.
Yeah. I get it completely. So, again, keeping the staff, keeping the employees and the clients happy, that's got to be a juggling act for you. Again, now that you've got multiple locations, does that change the way your staff looks now? Do you have someone that helps you manage all three of those together? Or do you have each office has their own location manager, or is that
So
you, or you daddy over all of them? Like, how does that look for you?
kind of like we started out with the location manager thing, and then we've kind of just turned it into like we're one big like Linux team.
Yeah.
And thank goodness for Teams and Zoom and Google Meet and stuff like that. So now then it's turned into on Tuesdays at this time, like I have a Google meeting with this side of the house.
Yeah.
And Wednesdays at, such and such time, I have a Google meeting with this side of the house. And then Thursdays at this time, there's a Google meeting with all the producers. And it's just
Yeah.
trying to stay involved enough that you're involved and aware and trying to
Right.
stay out of their way enough that it's not like I got to talk to this idiot again. Like I'd get more done if he'd quit calling me. And it's like it's
Yeah.
that balancing act though, because where
Yeah.
everybody's I want my boss to be available when I need him to be available, but if I don't need him, I don't want him. And it's like, yeah, okay, like I get it, like I mean, I understand that. So it's just kind of learning, and everybody's personality is different. Like
Yeah.
you know it, like you've got that everybody's got a team member or two that wants a 20-30 minute. It doesn't have to be face to face. It can be on the
Yeah.
phone, or it may be in a text chain or something like that, where they just once every week, once every couple weeks, they really want your attention, and that's fine. And then you've got the other folks that are like, hey man, like I'll call you if I need you, and if I
Yeah.
don't call you, I don't need you. And it's learning those personalities, and it's learning to balance that out. And you've got 15 individuals that none of
Yeah.
them, no one wants to be managed the exact same way,
Sure.
and that's a learning curve.
Yeah. Well, so to put a bow on this part of the conversation, is there, as you look out 5 years from now, does Linux look larger in location? Is that a plan now for you to say, or are you just praying for more drops in your lap of agencies?
No, I mean we're being intentional.
Okay.
It's an intentional process at this point. Like it's something you want to be a part of. It's something that there's a size threshold kind of in the back of your mind. Not saying like, hey, like if this massive opportunity were to hit, we wouldn't look at it. Like not saying
Right.
that at all, but saying, there's a size thing here to where if they get so big, now you're in there with some players where it's like, hey, this is a different ball game. Like they're different than what we do. They're different. Like they're bringing in a whole new culture. They're very corporate. They're very this. Like there's a full blown like M&A team that works at some of these places, and you're like, that's not. I don't know that that's the space that I necessarily want, to be fleshing agencies out in. But like that, there's definitely a group, a size range and stuff like that we're looking at and looking for. Um, and it's just making puzzle pieces fit at that point. Like, does it fit? Does it not? Does the deal make sense? Does it not? And that one goes back to people. Like, are the people who work there people that I would enjoy working with? Because that's what's going to happen. Like, ultimately, at the end of the day, it's do you enjoy working with these people?
Right. So, I again going back to such a massive change, I guess since post pandemic or the pandemic changed a lot of that, but there was a period of time where I felt like we're going to see the resurgence of the small agent again, with technology and with this, that, and the other. Now, over the last, I guess, I don't know, I can't put a time on it, but I'll say a year or so, I've seen that rapid pace of mergers and acquisitions ramping up again and being a threat to the smaller agent again, people like Acrisure, Hub, and Gallagher. And not to say that Big Bad Wolf, but that's just the names that are out there. And what I think is even more fascinating is I think it was about a month ago. What's today's date? Yeah, I think it was August 7th. What's that big Insurance Journal came up with their top 100 brokers. And that gap is even, starting to spread even more of, the top 4 or 5 on down to the smaller agencies. And again, I say smaller, they're like $900 million agencies, but that gap is crazy. So I guess, I would love to hear from your perspective again, as a smaller agency that's buying agencies. Like, do you see that, and where do you think the small agent stands 5 or 6 years from 10 years from now? If you're a mom and pop last name agency, do you need to be threatened or concerned? Do you think it's just a cycle? It's going to come back around. What are your thoughts on that?
So much of it has to do with your markets. Because like if you start looking around at what I think me and you would consider, at least in Arkansas, like true blue mom and pops. And I don't want to put a number on it because I don't like, you don't offend anybody, but like there's a number there that like, and everyone's number is different. Like number that you would consider mom and pop, there's a number I would consider mom and pop, and none of those are right. But I think the thing you've got to do right now, depending on where you're at in life, where you're at in the agency, where everything's going, is if you start looking at your market access, because it's very possible, especially in our state, that for some agencies, 30, 40, 50% of your standard lines market access has disappeared over the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Through no fault of yours.
Right.
Not here anymore.
Yeah.
And if that's who you are and what you are and what's happening, that you're going to lose a lot of that book. You're going to wind up having a lot of that book at a brokerage, and there's nothing wrong with that because you're still getting paid to play.
Yeah.
But you become less attractive. And there's that. And, I'm with you. Like, I have always been a champion of hey man, like go start your own. Like if you if you don't love it here, if you don't love it where you're at, like go start your own. But I also think that someone like me has to acknowledge to anyone who's asking them that question at this point, like it's not the world I went and started my own in anymore.
Yeah.
Like Mama Kim doesn't change your life anymore the same way she changed mine. And it's not because she's changed or the program's changed or anything like that. It's just that the life-changing market access is a lot harder to get to at this point.
Yeah.
And the business is a lot harder to get on the books and get it to stick than it used to be.
Yeah.
And if you can skip that step and find somebody that you can, tolerate, something like that, one of those to work for, you're probably going to have an easier life, at least in the near future. Now then, like me and you were talking, 4 years from now, it may look like 2017 again. And it may be back to, you look around Little Rock, Conway, Paragould, Jonesboro, wherever, and it's like, man, there are like 15 of these new guys. What are they doing? And it's like, well, there's 3 hot contracts, and they got all 3 of them, and that's all they need. And
you're exactly right.
I mean, the ebb and flow, like right now, I wouldn't want to be a scratch guy. Like today, it does not sound fun. But that doesn't mean that by 2030, it's not a conversation to have again. It's weird. Like, we've been going away since the internet started. And we're all, for the most part, still here. It's different.
Oh, yeah.
Changed. Like it ain't what it used to be.
Sure.
But the demise of the independent insurance agent hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, I had an interesting conversation. I can't say a name on the air, but a guy that you and I have served on a board together with sold his agency at a very young age to another agency in town. And I remember having the conversation with him and like, why would you do that? You're growing. You're in a great spot. He was like, listen, here's the deal, Heath. At the end of the day, as an agency owner, you take home about 50% on your profits. The rest of it goes into staff and building and expenses and whatnot. I could do that. In some months it's 40%, 30%, or I could go work for somebody else and get a commission split. I'm making the same amount of money and I'm able to focus on one thing, producing. And I feel like it took me a while to wrap my head around that. And then when I became, back in the agency world again, I was like, okay, I get it now. So again, I wonder if more agencies would have that thought process of there's a lot of headaches with owning an agency. Why not just take a commission split and focus on your family and producing? And that may, continue this rise of M&A with these, private equity firms and whatnot. I don't know though.
Yeah.
Thoughts? There wasn't a question there. It was just my thoughts. I want to hear yours.
Yeah, but like it's nuanced and layered, right? Like, do you want to be a business owner or do you want to be a producer?
Mm-hmm.
And those are two very, very different jobs.
100%.
And the number of people who own insurance agencies almost out of like necessity, like they were a producer that got a raw shake somewhere or got a bad deal somewhere or something like that, and like now they're an insurance agency owner. And the number of folks that you and I both know that we've talked to, where it's like, why'd you start your agency? I just had to leave where I was at. Like, I never meant to own the place. Like, I never meant for it to have my name on the door. Like, I never meant to be, that guy or gal, and I don't really want to be. But it is what it is. They enjoy being super producer. Like that when were you at your happiest? Whenever it was me and nobody else. Okay, cool. Not me. Like didn't want to be the lead dog, was perfectly happy to own it and let, thoroughbreds be thoroughbreds. That's fine with me.
Yeah.
But I get that for some people that's not their managing personalities, not their thing. Managing different departments, not their thing. Sitting down and figuring out this process for how we do this, not their thing. Like, everybody's different. And I think the thing that we're going to see, hopefully, over the next 4, 5, 10 years is folks within the industry find roles that are authentic to self and they're the role they want. And it's not like, if you want to be a producer, find somewhere to go and be a producer where you're valued, where you're appreciated, where you got support. Like, if you don't want to be the agency principal, don't go do that. Go find someone worth working for.
Sure.
If you enjoy being an account manager and you're great at it, don't necessarily take that next promotion to whatever that next level is because you're supposed to, right?
Right.
You're supposed to just keep advancing. Like, even if it takes you out of something you enjoy, well, we've got to chase the carrot. So we chase the carrot and then we get the carrot and we go, ooh, I like that job back there better. That was more fun.
Yeah, I think it goes back to knowing who you are, knowing your strengths, knowing your weaknesses. And I can say this one on air, but one of our friends, Chris Evans, been on the show before, told his story, and I loved part of his story because he's probably one of the best salesperson or salesmen I've ever met in my life. And I've watched his career since he was in his 20s. Dude is still a phenomenal producer, but he knew when he started his agency, I don't know the back end stuff. I'm a super producer badass. So he brought in another gentleman, Drew, that knows the business, that knows how to run an agency, knows how to be a business owner, and was like, I'm okay with splitting my profits with somebody that I trust to run the backside. But he knew, like, I don't want to stop producing. Like, I love to produce, and he's so good at it. And so I think it takes a lot of that. And not everybody can be Chris Evans, and not everybody can be Drew Nasdam or Holden for that matter. But I think living within that and being comfortable in your shoes, I think you give great advice of don't take that next promotion because you have to. Because I think that's the problem with so many. If you look back to failed agencies or failed producers or failed agency owners, I should say, is because they used to be hella producers or hell of a account manager, and now they're in this role they don't know or want. And so I think,
Yeah, like,
I think you've done that well by letting thoroughbreds be thoroughbreds, as you would say, letting your agency, like, it's so cool for me. Like I said yesterday, to watch your team, and you were nowhere nearby, and they just watching them do their thing. And it's like, you could tell the agency, all the agencies that were there, you could tell the people that were with Linux, because like you had their stamp, they had your stamp on them, and like I knew they were your people, and so it was just cool, man.
yeah, and I mean, like you said, like they're from all walks of life. There's all sorts of age gaps in there now. Like
It's crazy.
we run the gamut on who folks are, but like it comes back to the people and
Yeah,
being surrounded by the right people and making sure, your people are your people and I think they would look out for me as much as I try to look out for them.
sure.
So, I appreciate you saying that because there's so many people here that have a hand in that being the way that it is. And not just me. Like, I mean, you look at somebody like a Hannah who's been here, 7.5 years now, something like that. Like, I mean, and
Crazy.
she's my right hand. Like I know if I'm
Yeah,
gonna be out. Like, I mean, we talked about the mom thing earlier, and
yeah,
I had to call Hannah one day and was like, hey, like I don't know when you're going to see me again.
yeah.
And the response was, cool, don't worry about it.
You
And I
got
was
it.
like,
Yeah,
if you need me, call me. And she was like, I won't. And
that's
she
awesome. That's
like,
what you needed.
and for the next, 2 to 3 weeks, like I got to focus on what was important and right in front of me. And that's because of her. And like I didn't
Yeah,
spend my mom's last 2 or 3 weeks sitting around worrying about Linux
yep.
because Anna's got it. And that's huge. Like, I mean,
Huge.
that's a massive amount of trust to have in somebody, but it's also knowing that they've got it, that are gonna do
Yeah,
it, and pull it off. And if that means they're coming in early and staying late so that for that, 2, 3, 4 weeks, whatever it is, you're not worried about this place, they'll do that.
yeah.
Because they know you've got them. And that's just that's massive. Like having the right people is it you can't there's not a price on that.
100%. And you know, I can't end. I got to earn my paycheck a little bit here, and so and make sure that I don't get fired as mayor of Insurance Town, I
Right?
guess. But so first of all, I want to say I have not. I'm not doing this whole podcast. You and I, neither one, because I know you well enough. Like those Acrisures, Hub, all those people like that. They're not the bad guys. They're not the big bad wolf. They're not terrible. And in fact, another, former guest of the show, Amanda, she's, her agency's been purchased by one of these larger shops like that and loves it and absolutely, thriving in that environment. And so again, I'm not saying, if you're, in that realm or whatever, or you shouldn't even look at those people to buy, or sell to, because, a lot of those bigger PE firms or whatever it might be, they're looking to keep you on as agency owner. I mean, keep you on there. They just partner with you or help you
Yeah.
out. And so I don't want, because I've got a lot of people from some of those larger top 100 brokers that listen to the show, and I'm not taking anything. I'm just telling Holden's story and talking from a small agency perspective. So, don't impeach me. But now on the flip side of that, I would love to, again, to pay the bills. No secret that a part of your success is working with a network in Smart Choice. I just had them on the show recently. I love every single person, sort of from top to bottom there. Could you tell me a little bit about what that looks like? Because a lot of people think, oh, I can't be a part of a network because of this, or I can only do it because of a network. What has it been for you?
So for me, Smart Choice was my first phone call. I mean, you've heard this story, the whole like
Yeah.
to be an insurance agent whenever I grew up, and fortunately, the old Google machine led me to Kim Carney, and Mama
Mhm.
Kim's taken care of me ever since.
Yeah.
So, for us, it's been huge.
Yeah.
Us Smart Choice has been just fantastic, but it goes back to the people. Like every company is as good as the people that you get to work with. And fortunately for me, I got partnered up with Smart Choice, and Smart Choice has great people. You've got Andrew Caldwell, Ashley Wingate, Paul Taylor, Oliver Trevioso, David Wilson, Kim, on down.
Yep.
At this point, like Andrew Caldwell's brother, Ben, handles a ton of the paperwork and stuff like that. And like Ben's great. Like
Yeah.
you email Ben and go, hey, I need such and such appointment. Cool. Here's the paperwork. Get it filled out. And like 48 hours later, Ben's like, hey, as soon as this clears, legal, like you're good. And it's like, good grief. Like this is awesome. Like this is
Yeah.
great. But I mean, like Kim's instrumental in everything we've done. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, you want to talk about day one till now, like the ride or die, like the OG, like looking out for you. Like they don't like people don't get better than Kim Carney.
No.
But it works. Like the partnership works for us. We appreciate them. They appreciate us. I've never felt taken advantage of. Like I've never felt like, I was in a relationship there that I didn't want to be in anymore.
Yeah.
Um, and so much of that's Kim, but a lot of that's home office too. Not every big corporate
Yeah.
entity functions the way they function and looks out for people the way they look out for people. And that's because they're good people. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's strange. Like whenever Kim has her state meeting and she's like, hey, this one's coming from home office and that one's coming from home office, there's never this trepidation of like, oh, like they're coming down from on high
People get excited about them coming.
yeah. Like my first question is like, hey, who's coming from North Carolina? Who's coming that I get to pick on?
Yeah.
Or I'm shooting David Wilson emails like, hey man, did you see the Alabama game this weekend? Or whatever it is, because they're just like they're people you want to be friends with.
Yeah.
They're people you want to do business with. And obviously for me that relationship starts with Kim, but it runs all the way up to flagpole.
Right. And yeah, you couldn't be more correct on that. And that's, I've gotten to spend a lot of time, even before they were a sponsor of the show with them. And I just love everybody there. And so again, as you've transitioned a little bit from personal to commercial, obviously Smart Choice has been, a big part of that as well. What has that meant for you in your agency? Because most people think Smart Choice, they think personal lines, but I've noticed over the last 4 or 5 years, they've really closed that gap, kind of like what you're talking about, being more 50-50. And especially when the standard markets closed doors and you had two of your largest carriers shut down doors completely, or maybe one of yours. But anyway, in the state of Arkansas, we've had two large, hot carriers shut down completely. What does having Smart Choice have your back on that? What has that meant to your agency? What has that done to help you?
I have lots of conversations with people that go, hey, I've recently lost this contract, or I've recently lost that contract, or we don't have this code anymore, we don't have that code anymore, we can't place business here, or we've lost the ability to place business here. I'm not saying we've been completely immune to that because we haven't. Like to your point, one of our big boys packed up and went home. And that has not been ideal. It's been a long year. I'm ready for that to be over with. But
Yeah.
we're sneaking up on it. I think come January 2, there'll probably be a big party around here, whatever that book
Yeah.
thing. But it is what it is. But we've had the ability to place business. Now then there are times where that ability has been we've had to place it through Smart Start, but it still got placed.
Right.
There have been times where, hey man, like you're going to need to step it up a little bit. Like you're going to have to put something here. Okay, cool. Like, but it's never been one of those where like you get to October and it's like, hey, if by December 31st you haven't done X, Y, and Z, like you're toast. Like it's never been
Yeah.
that. So it's been good for us to have them as we're making this transition because, like personal line success and commercial line success don't necessarily translate.
Right.
And whenever you start, they're without naming carriers, but like, hey, I've got this massive book with X, Y, Z, and it's like, that's cute, has nothing to do with what we do.
Yeah.
And it's real different whenever, you've got someone like a Kim sitting there going like, hey man, like they've done this over here. They're trying to transition over here. If they get a foothold, you want to be a part of this. And it's huge. Like whenever someone's willing to go to bat for you and advocate on your behalf, like that changes the game.
Yeah. I really, first of all, I appreciate you coming on with me, hanging out with us at Insurance Town and catching us up from, I think I titled the episode 5 or 6 or 4 years ago as like from scratch, whatever. And now look at you, it's cool. Like it's funny that yesterday or whenever it was, we saw each other. It was like, we were just teasing each other about, well, look at you, look at what you've done. And I'm like, well, look at you, look what you've done. It's like, it's cool to see the two of us, kind of expanding in our own, directions. It's been fun. And so, I thank you for sharing that. I'm looking forward to spending more time with you, doing some stuff for our industry and with PIA, which obviously I love dearly. And so thank you for sharing your story. And I know there's a lot of people that are going to be resonating with this, and that, may want to even reach out and talk to you. Is there any contact info you'd be willing to share?
Shoot, yeah. We'll go. What we can do is, if you want to, we'll put the email address and all that stuff in the show notes. Down at the
Perfect.
bottom if you want to do that.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Open book, man. Like so many people have helped me get to where I'm at that, like,
Yep.
if I can do anything to pay it forward, I'm game.
Perfect. And I've watched that, throughout, knowing you. And so, so when he says that, it's legit. So we'll put the email in the show notes. And man, is there anything else that we left out or anything you wanted to share? Anything you wanted to say before we bounce out of here?
I think we've about covered it all. But no,
Yeah.
anything for me, like any time at this point, knowing what I know and knowing how short all of this is and how quickly it ends is, if anybody's listening to this that's part of that circle, that's part of my circle that had anything at all to do with where we're at, like thank you, like sincerely.
Yeah.
There were a lot of names dropped in this. One of them that didn't get mentioned is, I mean, you look at Jordan, like if you want to talk about like day one, like, hey, I'm taking this flyer, like let's go do it. And Jordan's like, hey, whatever you want to do, like what, like let's try it, like let's see what happens, like go for it, and if it works, great. If it doesn't, like we'll be fine. Like we'll
That
be.
support is so huge.
Yeah, yeah. Like I mean, I've got a wife that gets it. Like whenever because this doesn't work if you can't text at 4:57 and be like, hey, I'm going to be late. Or, hey, like this month ain't been that good, honey. Like we're gonna have to the next 30
Yep.
days will be a struggle. Like it doesn't work if you don't have that. So I mean, like you look at from Jordan, mom and dad, kids on, like the list of the names that we dropped or didn't drop today. Like if you've had anything at all to do
Yeah.
with this. Like this is all about, like this is a people story. Any way you cut it, this is a people story.
100%.
I'm just fortunate enough to be surrounded by the right ones. So thank
And yeah, back to Jordan, it just further proves you way out kicked your coverage.
you. Oh
So
yeah,
yeah, we
absolutely.
all do. We all do, but that just further sealed it. When you got someone not only out kicked your coverage in looks wise, but also in the being cool factor and being a supportive factor. The list could go on and on and on. And so congratulations on that. Dude, I really appreciate you hanging out with us. And I'll let you know when we release this, and we'll talk again soon next week.
Sounds good, buddy. See you
All
Sunday.
right, brother.
Take care.